Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Happy birthday to producer Greg, who is about 30 but looks 50. That's what working with me does for you. It's 9 o'clock on TV, on radio and online. In the United Kingdom and across the world, this is Mark Dolan Tonight. A shock new study reveals that working from home makes you depressed and fat. There's a surprise. Sorry, folks, it's time for Britain to go back to work. A year on from his resignation from ITV, has Phillip Schofield served his time out of the spotlight? Should he be back on the box? And would you like to see him here at GB News? And a new poll shows that 82% of the public admire Queen Camila. If she was running for election, she would win by a landslide. My thoughts on the woman that went from homewrecker to jewel in the royal crown. Two hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. It's Saturday night and it's the long bank holiday weekend. Let's have a debate and let's have a laugh as well. Crack open a bottle of something cold and fizzy and I'll see you after the news headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening. Our top stories tonight. The Prince and Princess of Wales have said they are incredibly sad to hear of the death of an RAF pilot after his Spitfire crashed into a field in Lincolnshire. The Ministry of Defence has described the incident, which took place near RAF Coningsby, as a tragic accident. Police and emergency services responded just before 1:20 this afternoon, and the pilot, who has not yet been named, was declared dead at the scene. It's thought that the aircraft was taking part in a Battle of Britain memorial event. The man's family has been informed and an investigation is now underway. Rishi Sunak has described the pilot's death as awful news, while Sir Keir Starmer said he was deeply saddened. Well, Sir Ed Davey has claimed that the Lib Dems are way more in tune with young voters after Sir Keir Starmer pledged to lower the voting age to 16. Sir Ed pointed to his party's position on housing, Gaza and the EU as examples of their youth appeal. The major parties have been pitching their messages to voters on the first weekend of the election campaign. Speaking to reporters, the Labour leader said young people deserve to have their say.
I want to see 16 and 17-year-olds voting. They can go out and work. They can serve in our armed forces. And, of course, if they are out and working, they pay tax. And therefore they should have a say over how the money they're paying in is being used. So yes, I want to see that vote for 16 and 17-year-olds. If you can work, if you can pay tax, if you can serve in your armed forces, then you ought to be able to vote.
Well, the Prime Minister is claiming voters and their families would be at risk under a Labour government. Posting in a long thread on X, Rishi Sunak claimed that Labour doesn't have a plan and said that would give our enemies the chance to take advantage of our weakness. The Tories are trying to make security a key dividing line between themselves and Sir Keir Starmer's party after pledging to raise defence spending to 2.5% by 2030. And finally, a 17-year-old boy from Lancashire remains in custody after being arrested on suspicion of murder after a woman was found dead on a beach in Bournemouth late last night. Dorset police said they were called to reports of two women stabbed on Durley Chine Beach at around 11:45. The 34-year-old was pronounced dead at the scene, while a 38-year-old was taken to hospital with serious injuries, where she continues to receive treatment. For the latest stories, you can sign up for GB News alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now back to Mark.
Thank you, Ray. Welcome to a busy Mark Dolan tonight. In the big story, a year on from his resignation from ITV, has Phillip Schofield served his time out of the spotlight? Should he be back on the box? And would you like to see him here at GB News? Also, why Sir Keir Starmer is trying to win over readers of the Daily Mail. And Rishi Sunak hits back at a slur from Labour. We'll bring you all the latest drama from the election campaign. And in my Take at 10, looking forward to this, a new poll shows that 82% of the public admire Queen Camila. If she was running for election, she would win by a landslide. My thoughts on the woman that went from homewrecker to jewel in the royal crown. That's my Take at 10 in an hour. With me tonight, my top pundits, Jasmine Birtles, Christopher Biggins and Nina Mishkov. Plus the most important part of the show, your views. They come straight to my laptop, gbnews.com/your say. And this show has a golden rule. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. A big 2 hours to come, and we've got good vibes because it's Saturday and it's the bank holiday weekend. So let's have some debate and let's have a laugh along the way. We start with my big opinion. A new study reveals that working from home increases the risk of being overweight and depressed. In other news, the Pope has Catholic leanings and bears do toilets in wooded areas. An analysis of 5,000 employees from several UK businesses by the health insurance firm Vitality found that 12% of people who are fully remote suffer depression, and a whacking quarter of workers, that's right, 25% of workers, become overweight. People who stay at home are also more likely to have joint or back pain. And an extraordinary 87% of those not going to the office had at least one musculoskeletal condition, suggesting that being confined to the house may not be optimum for your well-being. Who knew? Now, this follows the news that billionaire entrepreneur Sir Jim Ratcliffe, co-owner of Manchester United, who won the FA Cup today, has ordered all admin staff at Man United to go back to the office. The obvious conclusion is that whilst some people are productive indoors, working from home is largely the preserve of the lesser ambitious and the less productive. And with this latest research, the long-term sick are part of the problem as well. For anyone doubting that this new arrangement is having an impact, it's also been revealed that shirk from home is fueling the afternoon leisure economy, with golf clubs and hair salons doing a roaring trade. There's a surprise. Now, for some, working from home is an opportunity to work more efficiently and save on travel costs. Many of you have told me that you love working from home and it's a great success, especially if you've got kids or a pet. Fair enough. But for too many, particularly in the public sector, it strikes me as an excuse to sit around all day, baking banana bread and watching Baby Reindeer on Netflix. And it's astonishing how that many people, so many people, now flatly refuse to go back to the office. Post-pandemic, it seems that employees think that they're the ones in charge and not the bosses. There are wider implications. Working exclusively from home is bad for the economy, starving local businesses like cafes, dry cleaners and city centre pubs of trade from office workers. Another British billionaire, entrepreneur Sir James Dyson, has said that work from home is a productivity disaster and is stifling innovation because people have ideas together, in a room, in an office, not on a screen. Dyson, the vacuum cleaner tycoon, says that work from home sucks Hoovering up precious resources. You're welcome. Kevin Ellis-Price of PricewaterhouseCoopers, a large accountancy firm, has said, and I quote, "The business case is clear. Our economic research suggests that a GDP cost of around £15 billion a year is at stake, factoring in not only reduced spending by office workers, but the opportunity cost of people and businesses not being clustered together." Money aside, it's good for people's emotional and spiritual well-being to actually get together and work in the same environment for at least some of the week. To be creative, to interact, to problem solve, and to incorporate newer employees who are learning the ropes. You shouldn't have to beg people that you're paying good money to come back and work in the office, especially civil servants. Whoever wins the election, we're going to have to boost productivity and grow the economy to escape our current high national debt and to pay for ever more expensive public services. The Vitality survey does suggest that hybrid working could be the answer, with a few days in the office and a couple of days at home. I've got no problem with that. I do it myself. But wait till you hear this. More people who work from home call in sick. That's right, more people who work from home call in sick than those who go to the office. So they're calling in sick even though they are already at home. They can't come in today, but they weren't coming in anyway. They need to stay in bed, but they were in bed. Make it make sense. The office or factory or wherever the business is located is a hub, a social, creative and professional focal point, a place to chat about last night's Coronation Street, to moan about your kids or husband, and to confide in a colleague about a problematic boss or co-worker. The office is about celebrating success together and making strategies when things aren't working. And what about the office romance? If you're stuck at home, you won't be enjoying the pleasure of those stolen glances from Sandra in sales or Ray in accounts. Good old Ray, absolutely packed into that Primark suit of his. And what people don't realise is that if productivity drops and the business suffers as a result of work from home, companies will ultimately lay people off. So working from home full-time is a risk to your career. Ultimately, the problem is there's no accountability. With too many work-shy employees browsing eBay for fashion bargains, planting daffodils in the garden, and opening their first bottle of San Miguel at 4 in the afternoon as they peruse their last emails of the day. What they don't realise is that one of those emails could come with a nasty attachment, a P45. Work from home doesn't work. Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. I'll get to your feedback shortly, but first, tonight's top pundits. We have journalist and author Jasmine Birtles. We also have writer and TV personality Nina Mishkov and legendary actor, comedian and presenter Christopher Biggins. Lovely to see all three of you. Jasmine, you work in the world of work. You run a very successful business which is called moneymagpie.com, which is a consumer financial website. Is that right? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about work from home? Is it a mixed bag or does it not work altogether?
Yeah, it is a mixed bag, and I totally agree with everything that you say, particularly when it comes to civil servants. I mean, golly, I think we've all experienced it. You know, you're phoning up and there's just nobody answering, nobody doing the work.
HMRC.
Horrendous.
The passport office.
Yes, and then, you know, insurance companies, broadband companies, I mean, they've always been bad, but they're far worse now. So absolutely, people definitely need to get into the office. However, in my business, moneymagpie.com, we've been working from home for the last 10 years. So, you know, I'm 50-50 about it.
Is this the first time you got properly dressed?
Pretty much. I'm in my pyjamas most of the time. But actually, I say that. You see, the people who work for me, they're either in relationships or they've got families or, as you say, got dogs. Me, I live on my own. So what I do is I go to a workspace because I've always worked for myself. I've always been freelance, never had a job. Nasty things, jobs. No, don't want to have a job. So I've worked for myself and I know know that if I stay indoors all day, I'll get fed up and lonely and I'll be watching telly and think, so I belong to a workspace. I go to work where there are other people around and I have friends and I can have a coffee or, you know, I can just pop in and out. And that, to me, is a nice way to do my work.
So that effectively means that work from home doesn't really work for you,
Not
actually.
for me, no.
You're more productive if you can go somewhere and be around other people.
Absolutely.
Nina, has work from home gone too far?
I honestly think it has. I really do, because the part of mixing with other people, and when you, particularly in the creative industry, you need to spark off other people. Of course, you're not in the creative industry if you're very much not completely non-creative in the civil service, frankly. Then that's a different matter. But even so, I mean, I've heard stories of this is just hearsay, of somebody who works for the Home Office. From home in Liverpool and goes to the golf club almost every afternoon, and his wife just moves the mouse on the computer a bit. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. The trouble is, when I first went freelance in 1987, and for the first 3 weeks I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt like a balloon that somebody had let go of the string, and I thought I should be doing something. So I realised I had to put discipline into my life. I had to get up and get dressed. The trouble is, people are, you know, they whinge about COVID and lockdown, but they're actually doing it to themselves. They're locking themselves down.
Well, this is a legacy of COVID, isn't it?
It's crazy, but they didn't like it, but they're reproducing it.
Biggins, what do you think?
I think it's very important to get out and be social, to meet people, to discuss things, to talk about life, to talk about what you saw on television last night. It's just a communication. You can't do that at home, sitting in front of a terrible camera. I mean, I loathe that when people say, oh, you've got to go on, you know, do this programme. You know, it's just not right. It's vile. I think it's you lose that communication, which is so important in life.
Christopher, what about the people who are saving £100, £200 a month on train fares or bus fares, who are spending more time with the family and are less stressed?
Yeah, but are they less stressed, do you think?
Well, some say they are. Some say they, well, it could be worse. Depends how big the kids are, doesn't it? But some argue that it allows them to focus more on the work for a shorter period of time, and then they can take exercise, walk the dog, pick the kids up from school.
And not work.
Well, they would argue they work more efficiently, that when you go to the office, you get distracted by things, unnecessary meetings.
Except the man who just talked about, who plays golf, and his wife moves the
I've got to say, my local Wetherspoons is heaving at 3 in the afternoon on Wednesday. Although that said, why am I there?
Well, yes. I think it's a good idea to do the hybrid thing. I mean, maybe have one day at home. Two at the absolute most.
OK.
Get a balance.
Well, listen, folks, what do you think? Does work from home work for you? Let me know. gbnews.com/your say. Coming up next in a big story, a year on from his resignation from ITV, has Phillip Schofield served his time out of the spotlight? Should he be back on the box? And would you like to see him here at GB News? We'll debate that next.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
2,000 football banning orders have been issued to England fans ahead of this summer's Euro 2024 tournament in Germany. But authorities think that more than 300,000 England supporters could go to Germany, with Scotland fans, of course, also expected to travel in huge numbers. Well, I'm joined now by GB News' home and security editor, Mark White. Mark, welcome to the show. So you went to a press briefing this morning. As I understand, the authorities are gearing up to tackle what they see as a huge wave of potential hooliganism at the tournament. What's the latest?
Well, they're certainly not saying they're expecting hooliganism, and they are preparing for the worst, of course, if it happens, but hoping for the best. They say that in recent tournaments, England fans and, of course, Scotland fans have been pretty well behaved, but there will be very significant numbers attending that tournament, which gets underway in just over 5 weeks' time. That first match is Scotland taking on Germany in Munich, and of course just 2 days later it's England against Serbia near Dortmund. So 300,000 England fans alone they're expecting because it's so accessible. I spoke earlier to Chief Constable Mark Roberts, who is the national lead for football policing. This is what he told me.
Positive, you know, England fans got a great record at recent tournaments. We know when any number of that people travel, there's always potential for issues, but I think the German authorities are really well prepared. And I think one of the positives, particularly thinking about our fans, Germany's a beer drinking culture, so the police are well aware of dealing with people in the nighttime economy. They deal with plenty of big festivals, so I think we're going to a place that is well suited to work with us to keep everyone safe and make sure there's no issues.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From homewrecker to the jewel in the royal crown, I'll be tackling Queen Camila at 10 o'clock in my take at 10. But first, it's time for the big story, and tomorrow sees the one-year anniversary of the departure of Phillip Schofield from ITV after he admitted lying to his employers and his agent about what he described as an unwise but not illegal relationship with a young producer on This Morning. But as the silver-haired star returns to social media, has he served his time? Should Phillip Schofield be back on the box? I'll get the views of the Hamiltons in just a moment, who are no stranger to a little scandal and bouncing back from it. But first of all, let's speak to my top pundit, broadcaster and legendary actor Christopher Biggins. Biggins, you know Schofield. Do you think he served his time?
I do think he served his time, and I think it was rotten that he was actually asked to leave at the beginning. I mean, you know, what was it? It was an affair which, you know, sex somehow, everybody thinks it's terrible. I mean, obviously, there are places where it is, and we can think of a lot of people from the BBC who've been involved. But I think this was with someone who was legitimate. He wasn't a child, and I suppose the fact he lied was unfortunate. But you know, I think he should come back. He's a very talented young man, and I think we need to have him back.
And what about his brand? Is he tainted because of this scandal?
Well, I think the public are very forgiving. I mean, you're going to be talking later about Camilla.
Yes.
Look how, you know, she's been accepted back into the fold after she was made into looks like something terrible. Of course, everybody hated her because of Diana, how she was treated.
From homewrecker to jewel in the royal crown.
I know. Well, I do think she has picked that title now, and she's very amusing, and she has a lot going for her, I think. And she's being wonderful with her husband. You know, the king who's not well, she's looking after him and taking on a lot of his responsibilities.
But do you not think that Phillip Schofield has more baggage than Heathrow Terminal 5? It's not just the affair with the young producer. It's allegations that he wasn't particularly pleasant to work with, that essentially the set of This Morning was like Colditz. And, of course, that notorious trip to the Queen's coffin and Holly and Phil jumping the queue. Is this not going to be a hangover for Schofield? How does he move on from all of that?
Well, I think he's got to try, and I think we have to allow him to move on if he can. I mean, you know, everybody in show business has problems, and you know, are narcissistic, are hideous, are egos are huge. This is a problem in show business.
And what's your view of Schofield? Is he one of the good guys? Is he a friend of yours? Is he a nice man?
I wouldn't call him a friend, but he was always very nice to me whenever I met him or was on his show or whatever. So I can't say anything nasty about it.
Well, what makes him a good broadcaster, do you think, and a good entertainer?
Well, you've got to look at the years that he was on television, and the public loved him, and he could talk to anybody. He was like a member of the royal family. I mean, you know, the royal family have to talk to so many different people, and he did it brilliantly, I think.
Indeed. Well, look, I mean, I tend to agree that he's served his time, and as you say, the guy hasn't broken the law. Where might he go? Do you think he should come to GB News?
I don't think he could afford to, could he?
Well, I'll tell you something. First of all, our schedule is packed with premium talent. And I don't know, I mean, he could do overnights.
Yes, I suppose he could.
Early breakfast, something like that.
Yeah.
But what would be a good landing place for Schofield? I guess current affairs wouldn't be his forte. So he'd be looking for a similar gig to This Morning. Would he go to Channel 5? Would he go to Netflix? What might the options be?
Well, everybody seems to be going to Netflix, so I suppose that's an opportunity for him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, someone's got to take the risk, and whoever it is, it will do something very good for him.
And do you think it will happen, Biggins? Do you think that we will see him on our screens in the months ahead?
Well, I hope so. I hope we will.
Can we just talk about one of my favourite broadcasters and a very dear friend of mine and yours, Eamonn Holmes, who, it's been announced in the papers today, is to divorce from his wife, Ruth Langsford. I don't want to go into great detail because I just think that this is a very private matter. I just know that you're very fond of Eamonn, and I wanted to ask your reaction to this very sad news.
Well, it's tragic news because, you know, I went to their wedding 20 years ago, and it was...
Did you catch the bouquet?
No, I didn't, sadly. But it was a wonderful wedding. I mean, in Babington, it was wonderful.
Did you catch anything from the wedding?
I'll tell you later. I'm off air. But, I mean, you know, he's a great guy, a great journalist. It would be very interesting to see what his reaction would be to Phillip Schofield.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be quite different to a lot of people's view on it. But, you know, Ruth... and Eamonn are terrific people, wonderful work people, and I think it's been tough for both of them. His illness has not been good for him, obviously, and I think it's probably taken a strain on the marriage.
Most definitely. Ruth and Eamonn, two of the nicest and most professional people in television. And
absolutely.
I mean, I've only done a fraction of years that you've done, Biggins, but in my time in telly, you won't meet two nicer people. Just one quick question about the pressure of being a celebrity couple, because they're both famous. Is that difficult?
I think it is difficult. Because however much in love with someone you are, there has to be a professional jealousy, I think, sometimes that happens. You know, that one of you is working more than the other, one is earning more money than the other. I mean, you know, there's all sorts of things to take into consideration, and I think that is a problem with couples. So you've only got to look at film stars, you know, who are all seem to be divorcing at the moment, or are they together or still? I mean, the pressure is huge, I think. Couldn't
agree with you more, Biggins. That came from the heart. Let me say that I wish Ruth and Eamonn well. The happiness of them and the family is the priority. And, of course, most importantly, Eamonn's health. Let me tell you that there is a gigantic hole here at GB News. It is an Eamonn Holmes-shaped hole, and it needs to be filled. We miss him so much on breakfast. And so the main focus is for Eamonn to get well really soon and get him back where he belongs, at home here on GB News.
Hear, hear.
God bless you, Eamonn. Thank you for that. Biggins will catch up shortly, but next, with tonight's top pundits, should 16-year-olds have the vote? We'll discuss that, plus in an exclusive Mark Dolan Tonight People's Poll. We've been asking, a year on from his resignation from ITV, should Schofield be back on the box? Well, the results are in. I shall reveal all next.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Over the next 24 hours, it turns increasingly unsettled. We'll see cloud and outbreaks of rain across the country, and that's all thanks to low pressure, which is going to dominate the rest of the bank holiday weekend, bringing areas of rain and heavy and thundery showers as well. We've already got rain this evening pushing in from the southwest. This will continue to drift northwards as we head into the early hours. Rain across eastern areas also continuing to push northwards into parts of Scotland. Some of this will be heavy at times, but with a lot more cloud around, it will be generally quite mild overnight. Temperatures remaining in double figures, but it does mean generally a grey, damp start across the UK Sunday morning with outbreaks of rain. However, northern Scotland, there will be some sunny spells first thing in the morning before cloud and rain pushes northwards from the south. As you can see across southern Scotland into Northern Ireland, a cloudy start, outbreaks of rain, but temperatures in double figures. Cloudy across the central swathe of England and Wales, but some brighter skies already pushing into southern parts of England and Wales there, and they will continue to push northwards as we move through the morning. However, as the temperatures start to rise, we'll see the clouds bubble up and we'll see heavy showers across much of England and Wales and southern parts of Scotland as we move through into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder possible, local disruption, generally staying cloudier for parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland here with outbreaks of rain. A little cooler for most, temperatures generally 17 to 20 Celsius, feeling a little warmer in the southeast compared to Saturday. On Monday, another day of sunny spells and showers for many. Some of these will be heavy at times, some longer spells of rain possible as well for parts of Scotland, and it stays unsettled Tuesday into Wednesday with further spells of rain in places. Temperatures near average.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camila Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camila Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Well, folks, let me tell you that in an exclusive Mark Dolan Tonight People's Poll, we asked, a year on from his resignation from ITV, should Phillip Schofield be back on the box? Well, the results are in. And 89.4% of you said no, absolutely not, whilst 10.6% say yes, definitely TV needs him. There you go. Well, the public has spoken. This from Janice. Mark, please don't fill the Eamonn Holmes-shaped hole with Phillip Schofield. Boris would be a better fit. Well, he's got time on his hands, hasn't he, old Boris? I won't say anything more than that because we are in election purdah, and I'm going to be an angel for the next 6 weeks. Good luck with that. How about this? Annette says, hi, Mark, if I switch on GB News and see Phillip Schofield there, I will switch straight off again, and GB News will stay switched off until I can be sure it won't happen again. But Anthony, who is a GB News member, says, why all this anti-Schofield feeling? I saw him once on an ice dance programme and he wasn't political at all, so unlikely to be on GB News. OK, well, look, there you go. I do not want Phillip on GB News, says Paul. I agree with Kay that there are already extreme left and woke people on the media. OK, well, look, there you go. That's your opinions. A quick word on Phillip Schofield. Do you think he should be back on the telly, Nina Mishkov?
Not really, no. I'm really not interested in seeing him.
OK.
And I think he's had his day. That's what I feel.
But he's only in his early 60s, and as Biggins mentioned, he's a gifted broadcaster.
He is, but then there are lots of other gifted broadcasters, and he has had a really seriously big slice of the pie, and I think, you know, it's time to go and do something else.
Maybe
now.
New Zealand, where he came from.
There you go.
Yes.
He might enjoy himself down under. It's been...
Biggins, you laughing? What are you laughing at?
What are you laughing about? I can't imagine.
It's Saturday
Mark
night.
makes me laugh.
We've all had a drink. OK, it's been reported that Labour could give 16 and 17-year-olds the right to vote in its first year if it wins the election. So would that be good for democracy to extend the franchise to young people who will no doubt face the consequences of whoever wins power? Or are 16 and 17-year-olds too young to make an informed decision? Nina Mishkov.
Well, I've pondered on this, and I think yes, to be honest, because if you're 16, you're allowed to work and therefore earn money. If you earn money, you pay taxes, and if you pay taxes, I think you should have a voice and a right to decide, you know, what happens with your money and how it is handled. At 16, you can also have a child, and if you had, you know, which is the biggest responsibility of all. And if you have a child, then you should be able to vote.
You can go to war.
You can go to war. You can die for your country. If you can die for your country, then you should at least be able to have a say.
Although there is this suggestion that, you know, you're invested in the economy because some 16-year-olds work. That would be a tiny number of 16-year-olds. Most 16-year-olds don't have a job and don't pay tax, and that's the argument against them having the franchise.
Yeah, and you would hope that they don't have a child. You know, 16 is pretty young. I mean, I agree they could.
You've never been to South London?
No, they could. But, you know, on the whole, hopefully they don't. I was thinking about it as well, and actually I think Nina makes a very good point, because I was thinking, oh, golly, but, you know, 15, 16-year-olds, they're so easy to manipulate, the most easy. I think the young ones really are very easy to move in different directions. But what I was thinking is that frankly, it's difficult to get anyone to vote at the moment. I think this year we are going to have the lowest proportion of people actually voting. So the idea of getting 16-year-olds interested, I think is almost pointless at this stage, frankly.
Biggins, could this alter the political map? Because it is said that young people tend to lean to the left. Could that provide left-wing parties with an unfair advantage?
Well, I'm sure that's why Keir Starmer is wanting 16-year-olds to have the vote, because he feels exactly what you've just said. My problem is, and I think they should be, what you said is absolutely right. The only thing is, a lot of young people now are out on the streets using knives and killing each other. And it's a bit of a worry that sort of mentality is around. And I worry that they're the people who are going to vote not necessarily for the right thing.
That's a concern, isn't it?
Well, it is. But on the other hand, young people are, if they think about these matters at all, are very much more idealistic. That's why perhaps they are leaning left. And then it's not just Labour that will benefit, but I think the Lib Dems, because the Lib Dems or the Green Party.
The Greens, I was going to say,
if you look at the youth of Greta Thunberg when she started. So, you know, I know she's an extraordinary example, but there are a lot of young people who do care deeply about things and want the world to be a better place and are very keen on the whole climate change issue. So that could skew things, and I think that's a good thing.
I mean, it's worth pointing out that actually the average age of conscription to start is 18, and this has been pointed out on the message board. So, for example, let's have a look at this. A guy who is a GB News member says under 18s don't see combat. Brenda says they're all falling for Starmer's spin on the truth about the army. So actually, really, 16-year-olds don't go to war and fight for their country is the argument there. Also, what about this, which is giving 16-year-olds the votes? Jasmine says, as Jilly, who's a GB News member, is a ridiculous idea. She says they're not sufficiently mature. What about their emotional and intellectual development at the age of 16?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is what I feel at the moment. I do feel that too many of them are too easily led. Obviously, you have those who are highly intelligent, very mature for their age. You know, any age, you're going to have people of all sorts of different levels and thinking. But what I'd rather see is, I'm personally one that's for making people vote, that you have to vote, even if you spoil your vote. So rather than thinking about adding in 16-year-olds, most of whom won't even think about voting, frankly, I would rather make sure that the actual electorate, our current electorate, are forced to vote and forced to take part in some way, like they do in Australia.
It's the same thing as Australia, exactly. Because if you know, it is compulsory, and if you don't vote, you're fined. The thing is, if you have to vote, it makes you. It does make you think, and it engages people from a younger age because they know.
But actually, that's a fair point, Nina. But do we want young people to be even more political? Because you see kids taking the day off school to march about net zero, and I just wonder whether politics should be for grown-ups. Do you really want 16-year-olds out on marches chanting, you know, free Palestine and all the rest of it? Surely young people are already too political.
No, I don't think so. I think the term political, it seems to sort of have kind of really worrying connotations to you, but it doesn't. It just means engaging in the world. It just means thinking about, you know, what's happening around you, how the government is run, where you fit into the world.
What about David on the message board? Jasmine says the lefty teachers will be brainwashing them at 15.
Well, there is that.
Not happy about
that. To be fair, that is something we are seeing at schools and universities as well. The whole of the academia, it seems to me, has moved to the left, to the point where you've got people who are right-leaning, maybe Brexit voting, who have been actually effectively pushed out. And we saw what happened to Kathleen Stott in Sussex University by the trans lobby. You know, there is, I think it's a very good point, there is that problem. Although, of course, it does depend which school you go to. Probably if you're going to Eton and one of the other, you know, very expensive private schools, it's probably not quite like that, although I suspect there is a bit even there.
Although, Biggins, maybe young people are left-wing because the Tories have done a bad job running the country for 14 years, and when they get out of school, are they going to have a job? Will they get on the housing ladder? Possibly not.
Well, it could be all of those things you said. But as we're having this discussion, coming to the studios tonight, I was very much pro them having the vote at that. But I'm now, funny enough, having discussed it, I'm sort of thinking about changing my mind because I just don't think kids now have the mentality that you're all saying that they have in forming an idea of what they want, what people they want to run this country. But I think they're being influenced by their families.
That's always been happening. But I think the problem is that the young people are becoming more and more infantilised. And I think rather than indulging them in this and then, you know, becoming, you know, I hate the term snowflakes, but not taking responsibility for their own lives and not thinking about things, I think we should stop that. And we should make them think. We should make them take responsibility and have accountability for what they do and say. And I think, you know, give them that freedom to make their mistakes, but also to get things right.
OK, well, look, there's so much more feedback coming on the message board at gbnews.com/your say. Louise says you can join the army at 16 but can't go to war, can't marry, can't drink legally, can't drive, can't make full healthcare decisions, can't have a mortgage, rental agreements, etc. Freedom of information required to see how much tax they pay, even though they can work. Louise not happy with the idea of 16-year-olds getting the vote. The voting age, says Mick, who is a GB News member, the voting age should go up to 30. Well, there is talk about the fact that your brain hasn't developed when you're 16. Mine still hasn't developed, and I'm the big 5-0. Still waiting. We can but hope. Next up, at 10 o'clock in My Take at 10, a new poll shows that 82% of the public admire Queen Camila. If she was running for election, she would win by a landslide. My thoughts on the woman that went from homewrecker to jewel in the royal crown. That's at 10. You won't want to miss it. But next up, my Mark Meets guest is renowned Premier League referee Mark Halsey, who battled cancer to get back on the pitch. He tells his amazing story next.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
The Eurovision, according to figures out this morning, had its most disastrous night to date because viewing figures were down by 2.5 million.
So the BBC had a drag queen on telling everyone that she was boycotting it.
Who was boycotting it?
Someone called Crystal, who came on the Newsnight to say that she was boycotting her North London party because of Israel. So maybe that's why the figures are down.
They cancelled some Eurovision parties in gay bars in Soho.
Exactly. So I wonder whether that's what did it.
North
London party. I think the whole of Dalston basically not tuning in is what's caused this massive drop in ratings because of the whole controversy around Israel. I have to say, a lot of of those performers needed to go and see a hygienist. I mean, that man who was the Irish entry, who's supposed to be a satanic witch. She does pop witchery or something.
She screeched.
And she screeched a lot, and then took her clothes off. Yeah. And then there was a sort of devil man who was gyrating around her, who, obviously hadn't cleaned his teeth in years.
That was the vodka break.
Okay, fine.
That was the vodka break. When I went and got.
And I thought the Israeli entry. I mean, I didn't really like the song. I liked her dress.
Well, I just voted for it because
I thought the choreography was
I hated
awful,
the way she was
but,
besieged in a hotel room.
But I did also think that the Ukraine entry was quite interesting, because I know that the Israeli entry got into trouble for referencing the October 7th attacks, and she had to sort of rewrite her stuff because you're not allowed to mention the war or anything like that, which is fine. But then the Ukraine entry was very war. I mean, they had kind of gunfire coming in over her.
The whole thing, there was double standards.
There was quite a lot of that,
I mean, the people outside, the queers of Palestine...
We're going to carry on paying for it, though, because, I mean, the BBC pays the lion's share of it. That's us.
Yeah.
And we do spectacularly every year.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and, of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
OK, time for some feedback. Should 16-year-olds have the vote? That has become a hot election topic. This from Heather. Please inform Sir Keir Starmer that his facts on 16-year-olds voting is not correct. All children have to be in full-time education until they're 17, so they cannot have a job at 16. Having taught 16-year-olds for years, I can vouch for the fact that most of them have little clue about any aspect of life that could not make an objective decision about the running of the country. That is from Heather. Thank you for that. How about Alex, who says, give 16-year-olds the right to vote, yet still only pay the 56% of the minimum wage for a 21-year-old. And how about this? I'm afraid that Nina, says Marilyn, is completely wrong. The majority of 16 and 17-year-olds do not have a clue about life. As someone in their 70s, it would frighten me to death to think that a 16-year-old could control what happens to me. Thank you so much for that. Keep your feedback coming. gbnews.com/your say. Now, in my Take at 10, in just 15 minutes' time, a new poll shows that 82% of the public admire Queen Camila. If she was running for election, she'd win by a landslide. My thoughts on the woman that went from homewrecker to jewel in the royal crown at 10. But first, Mark Meets. And as we warm up for the European Football Championships, which kick off on Friday, the 14th of June, with Gareth Southgate's England hoping to scoop the top trophy, let's talk about the hardest job on the pitch. In the company of former top professional football referee Mark Halsey. Mark refereed in the Prem from 1999 to 2013, adjudicating over some of the biggest fixtures in Premier League history. Mark suffered a health setback in 2009 when a cancerous tumour was discovered in his throat. Well, I'm delighted to say that this legend of football made a full recovery, and he made it back onto the pitch in his black shirt and his red card and his whistle, and he joins us now. Mark, great to see you in such rude health. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Mark. How are you?
I'm really, really well. I'll be on my best behaviour, don't worry. I'm not going to get carded.
No, they're firmly away in the draw. You're OK.
Pleased to hear that. If you get the pencil out, I know I'm in trouble. Listen, you spent over a decade playing in non-league football, very successfully, as a goalkeeper. So what took you from goalkeeping to refereeing?
Well, they always say that goalkeepers are mad, aren't they? So to become a referee must be even worse. It was a good friend of mine that, I love me cricket as well. So my friend's house backed onto our cricket pitch, and he was a referee, and he kept on at me all the time, all through that summer. Mark, why don't you give up football and play and become a referee? And I just told him where to go. I said, Russ, I've got no interest whatsoever of being a referee. And I was sort of gradually falling out of love with football because I had a couple of serious injuries. And then I decided to take the exam, took the exam, and never looked back, really.
Most definitely. Well, you've had an incredible career. We know referees get a hard time. Can all of the abuse have a psychological impact?
Listen, I think you've got to reach the top level, the highest level. You've got to be mentally tough and mentally strong, and you've got to give as good as you get with the players. The players like referees that engage with them. They don't like an arrogant referee.
Yeah.
And I always found because I played the game, I knew the game. And it's not always about the laws of the game, and I knew the game, and I think that's what helped me. And I always engaged with the players. And listen, shop floor language goes on the field of play because that's the shop floor. And so, as I say, I used to really get on well with the players because they liked the way I refereed. Always gave them a chance, and we had good banter. They may not agree with my decisions a lot of times, but we had that banter, and that's what makes a standout referee with natural ability in how to engage with the players.
Well, there you go. Humour is a great lubricant, isn't it? Mark, have any high-profile players ever crossed the line? No pun intended, but has any Premier League star been really rude to you and left you with a lasting impression of what they've said?
No, I have to say no, not really. I mean, as I say, I always got listen. Players and managers will always get upset with you if they're unhappy with a decision. I had many managers come into my dressing room at half-time and at full-time. What went on in my dressing room stayed in my dressing room. And you can imagine what sort of words were said between them with with each other. But they had the greatest respect for me, and I had the greatest respect for them. As Jose Mourinho always used to say to me, he always thought I was the 23rd player on the field of play.
Isn't that something? Did you ever get the Sir Alex Ferguson hairdryer treatment?
No, but I had a few words in my ear from him as we're walking up the tunnel where no one could see. But I can't say what was said on this show.
No, well, luckily it will be Glaswegian, so you probably wouldn't understand. Mark, I'm going to get back to your brilliant career in a second. The summer of 2009 was a horrible time for you. You were diagnosed with cancer, and this was months after your lovely wife fell ill, I think with leukemia. This was a very tough time for you and the family.
It was tough because obviously 6 months before I was diagnosed, my wife was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia, and luckily in the last couple of years she's gone into she's beat it. So it was tough. It was very tough for me, my family, my young daughter at the time. And the football family all come together and supported me, and that was fantastic. I always remember walking out refereeing at Goodison Park. It was the Everton-Arsenal game, and I knew on the Monday I was going into the hospital to have that tumour removed. And after 5 days, he grew straight back again, and that's when I went to the fantastic place, the Christie Hospital, that saved my life.
Well, listen, thank God that you're back to good health, and of course your lovely wife as well. We wish her a continued recovery. That's great news about the remission, Mark. What about that first game back, though? You must have been nervous.
Listen, I was nervous for every game. Every game I refereed, I was nervous. Always nervous. Played the music in my dressing room. I think that my first game back was in a competitive game. Was in the Football League at Rotherham. Ronnie Moore left me a lovely message. A lovely letter in my dressing room. It was fantastic. And obviously my first game back in the Premier League, that was at Wigan, and Wigan beat Blackpool. That was a great reception I got there. But before that, when I thought I'd finished my first game, when I was first game of the season at Everton Arsenal, I thought that was me done. I thought I would never ever referee again. And my doctor said to me that if you survived, you would never ever get back on the field of play at the highest level. Wow. And I thought that was my inspiration to get back on the field. And after that Everton Arsenal game, I thought that was me. I thought that was me gone. But then obviously when I came back into the Premier League, I refereed at Everton in a friendly, Goodison Park. What a fantastic crowd there. Fantastic supporters at Goodison Park.
Yeah.
They know the game of football. You always have to referee well there because they know their referees and they know their football. And I got a fantastic reception, a nice gift that they give me, presented with me after the game. And then obviously the Wigan Blackpool game was fantastic as well. The reception I got was superb, and that's because I think I was respected by the players, the fans, and I think people knew me as a half decent referee, I suppose.
That was it.
Except for the Gillingham fans, they don't like me because obviously going back to the playoff final in 1999.
Of course, there are always those controversial decisions. Referees have to be fit, don't they? How far do you run in 90 minutes?
Well, I think I was documented at doing around about 13, 14 kilometres a game when I was fit. But when I came back, I sort of got told to slow down a bit, so I did.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to keep up with Harry Kane and God knows who else. It's unbelievable. You played football to a good level. Do referees have to be any good at football, or do they just need to know the rules?
No, listen, it's not always about the laws of the game. It's about knowing the game of football and having empathy and realise and having that what's going on around you, being aware of what's going on around you, and having that personality to get you through games. And that's something that I think that's lacking at present in our current referees. We've got some good referees, but we need the personality in the game.
I totally agree. And listen, I've only got a couple of seconds. Don't want to get in trouble with Greg. We're on Fergie time right now, Mark. Two quick ones. First of all, what do you think of VAR, which is video assisted referee? That's when there's a decision and they watch the video back and pause the game.
I think since its implementation into the Premier League, I think it's been very, very inconsistent. I think it's got steadily worse over the years.
Okay.
The IFAB, we need to revamp the IFAB protocol, and we need to train our referees better.
Okay, and last but not least, yes or no, can England win the Euros?
Of course we can.
There you go, I'll quote you on that. Come and see us again soon, Mark. Lovely to see your continued recovery. Next up, Queen Camila and My Take at 10.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Over the next 24 hours, it turns increasingly unsettled. We'll see cloud and outbreaks of rain across the country, and that's all thanks to low pressure, which is going to dominate the rest of the bank holiday weekend, bringing areas of rain and heavy and thundery showers as well. We've already got rain this evening pushing in from the southwest. This will continue to drift northwards as we head into the early hours. Rain across eastern areas also continuing to push northwards into parts of Scotland. Some of this will be heavy at times, but with a lot more cloud around, it will be generally quite mild overnight, temperatures remaining in double figures, but it does mean generally a grey, damp start across the UK Sunday morning with outbreaks of rain. However, northern Scotland, there will be some sunny spells first thing in the morning before cloud and rain pushes northwards from the south. As you can see across southern Scotland into Northern Ireland, a cloudy start, outbreaks of rain, but temperatures in double figures. Cloudy across the central swathe of England and Wales, but some brighter skies already pushing into southern parts of England and Wales there, and they will continue to push northwards as we move through the morning. However, as the temperatures start to rise, we'll see the clouds bubble up and we'll see heavy showers across much of England and Wales and southern parts of Scotland as we move through into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder possible, local disruption, generally staying cloudier for parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland here with outbreaks of rain. A little cooler for most, temperatures generally 17 to 20 Celsius, feeling a little warmer in the southeast compared to Saturday. On Monday, another day of sunny spells and showers for many. Some of these will be heavy at times, some longer spells of rain possible as well for parts of Scotland, and it stays unsettled Tuesday into Wednesday with further spells of rain in places. Temperatures near average.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, Every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. Hurry, you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camila Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camila Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. A new poll shows that 82% of the public admire Queen Camila. If she was running for election, she would win by a landslide. My thoughts on the woman that went from homewrecker to jewel in the royal crown in just a couple of minutes. Also, in a shock new development, reports tonight suggest that Princess Catherine may not appear in public until 2025 at the earliest. Plus, is Prince Harry finally going to be stripped of his royal title? And we'll have all of the fallout as campaigning for the election gets underway. A packed show. Tomorrow's paper's on the way, but first, the news headlines and Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening to you. The Prince and Princess of Wales have said they are incredibly sad to hear of the death of an RAF pilot after his Spitfire crashed into a field in Lincolnshire. The Ministry of Defence has described the incident, which took place near RAF Coningsby, as a tragic accident. Police and emergency services responded just before 1:20 this afternoon, and the pilot, who has not yet been named, was declared dead at the scene. Now, it's thought that the aircraft was taking part in a Battle of Britain memorial event. The man's family has been informed and an investigation is underway. The Prime Minister has described the pilot's death as awful news, while Sir Keir Starmer said he was deeply saddened. To other news, and Sir Ed Davey has claimed the Lib Dems are way more in tune with young voters after Sir Keir Starmer pledged to lower the voting age to 16. Sir Ed pointed to his party's position on housing, Gaza and the European Union as examples of their youth appeal. The major parties have been pitching their messages to voters on this, the first weekend of the election campaign. Speaking to reporters, the Labour leader said young people deserve to have their say.
I want to see 16 and 17-year-olds voting. They can go out and work. They can serve in our armed forces. And, of course, if they are out and working, they pay tax. And therefore, they should have a say over how the money they're paying in is being used. So, yes, I want to see that vote for 16 and 17-year-olds. If you can work, if you can pay tax, if you can serve in your armed forces, then you ought to be able to vote.
Well, Rishi Sunak is claiming that voters and their families would be at risk under a Labour government. Posting in a long thread on X, the Prime Minister claimed that Labour doesn't have a plan and said that would give, quote, our enemies the chance to take advantage of our weakness. The Tories are trying to make security a key dividing line between themselves and Sir Keir Starmer's party after pledging to raise defence spending to 2.5% by 2030. And finally, a 17-year-old boy from Lancashire remains in custody after being arrested on suspicion of murder after a woman was found dead on a beach in Bournemouth late last night. Dorset police said that they were called to reports of two women stabbed on Durley Chine Beach at around 11:45. A 34-year-old was sadly pronounced dead at the scene, while a 38-year-old was taken to hospital with serious injuries. Police say she continues to receive treatment. For all the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now back to Mark.
Thanks, Ray. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Happy Saturday and happy bank holiday to one and all. In a shocking new development, reports tonight suggest that Princess Catherine may not appear in public until 2025 at the earliest. Plus, is Prince Harry finally going to be stripped of his royal title? Also tonight, why Sir Keir Starmer is trying to win over readers of the Daily Mail. And Rishi Sunak hits back at a slur from Labour. We'll bring you all the latest drama from the election campaign. Reacting to the big stories until 11 p.m, including tomorrow's papers, Jasmine Birtles, Christopher Biggins and Nina Mishkov. A packed hour, those papers are coming, but first, my take at 10. As Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer battle it out for the top job in the country, they can only dream of the polling ratings enjoyed by Queen Camila. A recent survey conducted by GB News' brand new royal podcast, The Royal Record, reveals that Camila has over 82% support from GB News members for her performance as the King's spouse and the Queen of the nation. And let's be honest, being married to Charles is not the easiest gig. Whilst a decent and good human being, he's also a famous curmudgeon. A touchy, detail-obsessed, finicky workaholic, our impressive king is a big personality who is not the easiest to manage. As demonstrated by this famous footage in which he struggled with the pen tray. And what about that leaky fountain pen at his coronation? Who was there to step in to lend a helping hand, a word of reassurance, a note of good humour? His no-nonsense wife, a walking human valve in a posh frock, a woman who releases the tension in any situation. And following Elizabeth II as Queen has got to be the hardest task imaginable, given that Camilla's predecessor was arguably the greatest monarch in the history of this country, vying for top place with the formidable ruler of the British Empire, Queen Victoria. Although I quite liked Henry VIII too. An intelligent man, he won plenty of wars, grew the economy and knew his way around a chicken drumstick. Camilla is no chicken, and she's not foul either. In fact, she's been on quite the journey. Following Elizabeth was not her first big challenge. No, no, no. Her first big challenge was following Diana, a global icon, one of the most beautiful and charismatic women the world has ever seen. Camilla was cast as the homewrecker with Diana in that notorious Panorama interview in which she was right royally stitched up by the BBC. Diana said that her marriage to Charles was made up of three people: herself, her husband and Camilla. But let's not rewrite history. Diana was no angel herself, shopping around romantically and then some. The truth is that Charles and Camilla should have married in the first place. They were soulmates, they were attracted to each other, and their union was meant to be. Elizabeth forbade it, and with that, the seeds of tragedy were sown. But love will always find a way, and after the profound shock and sadness of Diana's passing, these two lovebirds were able to reunite, and since they married on the 9th of April 2005, they haven't looked back. Even before becoming Queen, Camilla did not put a single foot wrong. Notwithstanding disgusting remarks about her appearance and being horse-like, I've always considered Camilla to be an elegant and attractive woman. In fact, it's amazing how faultless her appearance in public always is, given that royal insiders tell me that she's much more comfortable in a pair of wellies and tracksuit bottoms. You wouldn't know it. For over 2 decades now, Camilla has been discreet, quiet, unobtrusive, never seeking to steal the limelight. She's spoken up for important causes like domestic violence and literacy. She has turned up to the opening of an envelope, cut the ribbon at countless hospital wings. She has smelt more fresh paint than the Dulux factory and sat through endless bagpipe sessions and boring military parades. She's eaten more cucumber sandwiches than you can shake a stick at. In fact, her body is now probably 10% cucumber. Cucumber sandwiches aren't even that nice, which is why Marks and Spencer's don't do them. All of this from a woman who had no ambitions to be queen or indeed a frontline royal. I'm told that the whole thing is not particularly her cup of tea. And I understand that she doesn't enjoy the best of health either. But Camilla cracks on with it, with effort and good grace. Such is her commitment to Charles and the country. How cruel, therefore, that her stepson Harry should describe her in his book Spare as dangerous and a villain. He reportedly begged his father not to marry her in the first place. How can his son not want his old man to be happy? Well, mercifully, Harry's pleas were ignored. And Camilla has become even more important in recent months, with the devastating news of both Charles's cancer diagnosis and that of her amazing daughter-in-law, Catherine. Camilla has supported Charles throughout his illness and joked that in recent months she's struggled to get him to slow down and that he's often a very naughty boy in his recovery. And in February, she led the family at the Royal Thanksgiving service. On Elizabeth's passing, many were upset at Charles's decision to declare Camilla Queen rather than Queen Consort. Well, I think she's earned the title. She's every inch a queen. It's been quite the journey from homewrecker and the subject of tabloid gossip to the woman who, alongside the king, leads and represents this country. The royals aren't elected, but if Camilla was, she'd win by a landslide. For 6 weeks, I'm not allowed a political opinion, but let me tell you that Camilla gets my vote. Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. I'll get to your opinions in just a moment, but first, tonight's top pundits. We have author Jasmine Birtles, TV royalty Christopher Biggins, and Fleet Street legend Nina Mishkov. Great to have all three of you with me. Well, what do you think about this Nina Mishkov? Queen Camilla, every inch the Queen.
Well, do you know, when you're trying to describe their romantic relationship, honestly, past the sick bucket, it really, when you think...
I think it's the greatest love affair in history.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Mark. It is...
I think it's better than... who have you got? You've got Romeo, Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor, Romeo and Juliet, Charles and Camilla.
Come on. No, for heaven's sake, the misery...
Katie Price and Peter Andre.
The misery that Camilla made Diana go through all those years, and if it was, you know, such a fabulous love story, and they weren't allowed to marry because Charles, well, it was Charles's own fault. He hesitated, and then Camilla went and married Andrew Parker Bowles, and obviously a divorced woman, that was, you know, not allowed at the time, and so that's what happened. And then Diana was served up as a kind of victim, if you like.
Sloppy seconds?
And no, and so I really loathe the fact that she's queen and not queen consort. The thought of her there with the crown on her head makes my toes go like that.
I hope you address her as the queen, though, out of respect.
No, I wouldn't address her as the queen. I really do not want to meet her.
Nina, that's profoundly...
No, I would not curtsy.
Nina, that's profoundly offensive that you will not address her as queen. She is queen.
Well, she's not my queen, thank you very much. And I have no desire to meet her. She's doing a very good job because, as you say, Charles is curmudgeonly and also he's very ill. But isn't it what a terrible state the royal family is, that they are represented by Camilla, who was his mistress for all those years, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, was reading out some speech of Charles's at a Normandy service. Where was William?
I mean, I've been in broadcasting. I've been in broadcasting for 25 years. I know it doesn't look like I have, but I've never heard such a diatribe, such a poisonous, toxic diatribe in my entire life, Nina Mishkov. This is an amazing human being who will turn up to the opening of an envelope. She sat there next to Charles, who's a difficult human being at the best of times. She hasn't put a foot wrong in 2 decades.
So what?
She is our queen.
What about... Well, Sophie represents the royal family and she was an ex-PR for Capital Radio. Where are the royals, for heaven's sake? They're trying to put Beatrice forward as this is the face of royalty. They're trying to run the Tyndalls up the flagpole. Oh, Australia has taken the Tyndalls to the heart. You ask any Australians and they say, who? This is a family, a royal family that is in deep trouble. And if Camilla is to be the saviour of it, God help us.
Well, I got to say, it takes a lot to shock me, Jasmine Birtles. I think that Camilla is every inch the queen. What's your reaction to what Nina's had to say there?
Oh, I agree with Nina, actually. And I am staggered that you've come up with a 82% approval. Who are these people? It's certainly not representative.
Well, can I tell you, it's the wisest constituency in the United Kingdom. It is GB News members.
But
it's only 40 people.
Yes.
It's only 40 people.
A lot more than that.
But look,
no,
I mean,
40.
410 people, I'm told, by Greg.
We don't want her. They genuinely don't. If you see her name anywhere on Twitter, you see #NotMyQueen. I mean, yeah, sure, she's sort of, you know, hanging around in a dress, cutting ribbons. If Rishi Sunak was hanging around in a dress, cutting ribbons, I'm sure, you know, he'd get a massive approval rating, you know, amongst those types. But no, absolutely not. I'm not interested in her. I find it irritating that she's called queen rather than queen consort. What about Prince Philip? He was never allowed to be king or king consort even. So what's so special about her? I think it's, you know, hey, I don't have anything against her. I think she's got all sorts of good qualities and, you know, good for her for putting up with Charles, absolutely. But no, I don't think that she's particularly major or interesting at all.
Biggins, I'm shocked by this vicious diatribe. Queen Camilla is a woman of grace. She's attractive. She's supported great causes. She's an amazing wife. She is every inch the queen. She's my queen all day long.
Well, what I have to say is that Princess Diana, who was just the most wonderful person ever, made a lot of mistakes, but her first main mistake was falling in love with her husband. No one explained to her that she had to provide children for the country. And then what happened was that Camilla was still there, even on her wedding night. She was giving him presents and they were talking to each other. So, you know, it is an interesting situation, this whole business. I agree with the girls, funnily enough. I don't think she should have become queen.
Briefly, Biggins, are you suggesting that Charles was diddling Camilla whilst married to Diana?
Yes,
all the time.
Of course.
Yes.
A Diana diddle?
During and after.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love sandwich. Oh, my goodness gracious me. Well, listen, it's a family show. There are kids watching. We won't delve. But that's one hell of an allegation. Where's your evidence for that, Biggins?
In my pocket here.
There you go. Well, look, we'll have a look at that later. I don't want to see what else is in your pocket. But I can see you're enjoying the show. Listen, folks, what do you think? Your reaction at gbnews.com/your say. The paper's at 10:30. Lots of twists and turns in the race for number 10. But next up, in a shock new development, reports tonight suggest that Princess Catherine may not appear in public until 2025 at the earliest. Plus, is Prince Harry finally going to be stripped of his royal title? And by the way, just to make sure that I don't get sent to the Tower, let me tell you that King Charles would deny those outrageous allegations made by Biggins. In regards to the King and Camilla diddling when Diana was on the scene, I'm not having it. Not on my watch. But, folks, lots more to come. Update on Princess Catherine next.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The most sexiest man in the UK at the moment, as voted for by a dating website, is that man on your screen, Jeremy Clarkson. I'm sorry, Peter, I know he's a man of a certain age, but I'm not getting this one.
Are you not?
No.
This is another reason for an old wrinkly like me to be deeply joyous. Hope springs eternal. He's grey-haired, he's balding, he's got a bit of a pot belly, he's quite tall. You know, I reckon I might be in with half a shower.
As long as only hope springing eternal, love. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of guys watching this will really be a bit befuddled as to how he's the sexiest guy. I think it's a sympathy vote.
No, I get it. I understand it.
But he's got a sense of humour, and he's got plenty of money.
But what's there to understand? How is he the sexiest man?
I'll tell you why. Because he's and I say this as a bloke, he's a man's man. He gets stuck in, he's involved, he's practical, he's physical.
Does that make him
funny?
sexy, though?
He's got money. I think men these days, if you ask me, too effeminate. Women don't want that. Women, well, I don't know what...
What do women want? Go on, just mansplain to me what women want. Go on,
Sorry, tell us, Dawn.
thank you very much. No, this is voted for by an illicit dating website, OK?
Oh, is it an affairs website?
Married women. But Idris Elba came third.
I just think Jez he's a man's man. Like I said, he's physical, he gets involved, he likes a beer, he's got plenty of money. How much did he get for the farm on
That's
Amazon?
so silly. So you're implying women only go for men with money?
Well, no, but I mean...
He did, didn't he? Just said that, yeah. He's got plenty of money for sex.
It's normal for women to want to be with a man who can look after them, no?
No. Will you stop mansplaining what women want?
My mum had an expression, Ben. She said, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. But trust me, if Idris Elba gets himself a pair of wellies, he'll be second next year.
Join me, Camila Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camila Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Well, it's time now for US News with the queen of American showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, great to see you again. And a worrying update about Princess Catherine. What do we know?
Yeah, no, I want to stress there are two conflicting reports, so I'll bring them both to you tonight. We'll see what happens. But sources have told the Daily Beast that the Princess of Wales will probably not appear in public for the rest of the year and is being surrounded by her birth family as she continues a course of preventative chemotherapy. The Wales family, along with the Middletons, are expected to spend next week at their home on the Sandringham estate. Now, alternatively, the Daily Mail reported earlier this week that Catherine's friends have said we might see Catherine in autumn, and only then if she has recovered fully, which is a similar conversation that I had recently with our mutual friend, Duncan Larkham. This isn't a bad omen, though. The Daily Mail also reported that the Princess of Wales has been spotted out and about more and more in recent weeks, with Katie Nichol of Vanity Fair telling me that she has heard that Catherine is improving. The family's doing everything in their power to spare the princess from any stress or anxiety. And when the Daily Beast asked their palace source how the palace would deal with the inevitable resurgence of conspiracy theories, they said, I would not pull out another video message updating the country on her health. That proved to be a very effective way of keeping the conspiracy theorists at bay.
Most definitely. Well, we can only pray for a speedy recovery for Catherine. Let's move on now to King Charles. Is he planning some tough love for his youngest son, Harry?
You know, I think this is a tale of when you see stories that sound too good to be true, they probably are. A lot of us feel like Harry and Meghan take advantage of their titles and would like to see them stripped of them. But that's not really a conversation that's happened between King Charles and Prince William in years. Technically, and Charles and William know this, if they strip Harry and Meghan of the Duke and Duchess title, they would revert to being Prince Harry and Princess Henry. The princess or the prince title cannot be removed. That is Harry's birthright, and you better believe Meghan probably already holds the copyright. But worst case scenario, Prince Harry is still a prince. Meghan Markle becomes publicly a princess, which we can expect her to still slap on jars of CBD jam. So I feel like this story really is kind of nonsensical clickbait. I don't really feel like this is a legitimate concern.
So actually, Charles is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. Stripping those titles might actually help the couple, and that's the last thing he wants.
Exactly. Yes, sir. I believe you're right.
OK, well, listen, let's talk about the wonderful Prince of Wales, William, at the FA Cup final today. It was a victory for Manchester United against Man City, so a massive day for the North West. And tell me more, he had a special little friend with him, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think with so much going on around, well, first of all, a lot of people were disappointed that we won't see much of the royal family with the upcoming election. They're going to pull back. They don't want to distract from the upcoming election. So people were disappointed to hear that some of these appearances were going to be canceled. But the Prince of Wales, who's the president of the Football Association, and his son, Prince George, watched as Manchester City and Manchester United went head to head. Both Prince William and George were totally in their element. You could see the smirk appear on the heir's face. His celebrations escalated, that sneaky grin he has. It is nice to see the two of them out and about after such a turbulent year for the family, and congratulations to Manchester United.
Definitely. I was just stick with that picture for a second, Alistair, because just to the right of Prince George, it looks like Joe Biden. Is that right? Was he at the game today?
You know what? I'm going to say he couldn't find his way to the restroom. So that's probably not him, no.
Probably not. There you go. Well, he'll have lost count of the score anyway if he was at the game. Listen, your reaction to my take at 10. I've got to say the message board has melted. I have said the Queen Camila has gone from homewrecker to jewel in the royal crown, especially this year, given the health concerns of Charles and Catherine. What's your view of Camila 2.0?
Look, I heard everyone's argument. I think that if you admire the royal family and you want to see the monarchy succeed, and it's important to you that they succeed, you don't push back on something as little as whether there's the word consort after her name or not. I highly doubt we're going to call the Princess of Wales Catherine. Princess, Queen Consort Catherine. I think we're going to go full speed with Queen Catherine. So I don't think it's really that much of an issue. And I agree that Camila has been a very valuable asset to the royal family over the last few years.
Most definitely. There you go. Well, diplomatically put, given that you're very much in Team Diana. Listen, a quick word on South Park, which is a brilliant satirical comedy series. I think we've got a clip here, and, well, do we need to explain? Should we set the clip up? What is the clip? And then we'll watch it. Do you know what the gag is here, Kinsey?
So South Park making headlines for taking on not only Ozempic, but Lizzo. And this is an episode called The End of Obesity.
OK, and so basically Lizzo is a very talented singer who is perhaps a little on the curvaceous side, and Ozempic, the injection that makes you thin. Let's take a listen to the clip.
I'm going to write you a prescription for Lizzo.
Lizzo?
She's a really good singer who talks about body positivity and just being happy with the way you look. I want you to listen. Oh, and I'm afraid you'll have to be on Lizzo for the rest of your life.
No!
Brilliant stuff. Listen, how's that clip going down in the States? You've got to rely on South Park. It's the only bit of non-woke comedy in America now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's some pretty harsh culture commentary from the guys, but certainly what we've come to expect. I am waiting with bated breath to see how Lizzo reacts, but the joke is that if you're on Lizzo, you don't exercise, you don't care how you look.
Outrageous. Listen, thank God they're still allowed to do it. They'll be cancelled at some point, no doubt. You never will, Kinsey. We'll see you in a week's time. And don't forget, Kinsey Schofield coming to the UK very, very shortly, next couple of weeks, and in the studio for top royal commentary. OK, next up, tomorrow's papers, election latest and my top pundits. Don't go anywhere.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Over the next 24 hours, it turns increasingly unsettled. We'll see cloud and outbreaks of rain across the country, and that's all thanks to low pressure, which is going to dominate the rest of the bank holiday weekend, bringing areas of rain and heavy and thundery showers as well. We've already got rain this evening pushing in from the southwest. This will continue to drift northwards as we head into the early hours. Rain across eastern areas also continuing to push northwards into parts of Scotland. Some of this will be heavy at times, but with a lot more cloud around, it will be generally quite mild overnight, temperatures remaining in double figures. But it does mean generally a grey, damp start across the UK Sunday morning with outbreaks of rain. However, northern Scotland, there will be some sunny spells first thing in the morning before cloud and rain pushes northwards from the south. As you can see across southern Scotland into Northern Ireland, a cloudy start, outbreaks of rain, but temperatures in double figures. Cloudy across the central swathe of England and Wales, but some brighter skies already pushing into southern parts of England and Wales there. And they will continue to push northwards as we move through the morning. However, as the temperatures start to rise, we'll see the clouds bubble up and we'll see heavy showers across much of England and Wales and southern parts of Scotland as we move through into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder possible, local disruption, generally staying cloudier for parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland here with outbreaks of rain. A little cooler for most, temperatures generally 17 to 20 Celsius, feeling a little warmer in the southeast compared to Saturday. On Monday, another day of sunny spells and showers for many. Some of these will be heavy at times, some longer spells of rain possible as well for parts of Scotland, and it stays unsettled Tuesday into Wednesday with further spells of rain in places. Temperatures near average.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10:30 p.m, so Alistair, do your worst. Did you know there's an election on? The Sunday Telegraph, Prime Minister, I will bring back national service. Boris Johnson will be out of the country for the majority of the election campaign. Royals see red. Prince of Wales with his son George helping Manchester United celebrate beating Man City in the FA Cup final. Labour's VAT raid blamed for closure of a private school. And infected blood victims to sue government over duty of care. The Observer now. Revealed Church's direct link to slavery. An Archbishop of Canterbury in the 18th century approved payments for the purchase of enslaved people for 2 sugar plantations in Barbados. Documents seen by the Observer have revealed. Also, Reeves slams reckless Sunak over £64 billion tax cut pledges. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves tomorrow accuses the Tories of making £64 billion worth of unfunded spending commitments in a desperate and reckless effort to rescue their gaffe-strewn general election campaign. Sunday Mirror now. TV couple's marriage over, of course. GB News star Eamonn Holmes and his lovely wife Ruth are to split. 27 years together, of course, we wish them well. Mail on Sunday. PM reveals manifesto bombshell in Mail on Sunday. Radical plan to force all 18-year-olds to serve in the military for 12 months or give up weekends to carry out civic duties. Rishi Sunak, I will bring back national service. Sunday Times now. Britain didn't drop bombs on the IRA. Israel should show the same restraint, says a top prosecutor from the International Criminal Court. Tory plan for all 18-year-olds to do national service. Teenage kicks Alejandro Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo, the 19-year-old goal scorers in Manchester United's 2-1 win against Man City. Wes Streeting. We will cut out the cultural rot in the NHS. Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting has pledged to tackle the cultural rot that places protecting the reputation of the NHS above protecting the public. Sunday Express. Rishi are bringing national service. Thrills and spills for William and George at Cup final. And last but not... do we have the Daily Star? We do. The Daily Star Sunday. Man United is the headline, but is it enough to save the Reds boss Erik ten Hag? And woman's memory is wiped out by, wait for it, mind-blowing bonk. Did the earth move for me? Hospital worker Polly Fisher had a romp with partner Mick Thacker that she'll never remember. She thought she'd had a stroke, but docs said the intense lovemaking gave her amnesia. Got to say, Mrs. Dolan's memory's going of late. Let's get reaction now to tomorrow's front pages with our top pundits. I'm delighted to have Jasmine Birtles, Christopher Biggins and Nina Mishkov. Nina, how's your memory these days?
Who are you?
There you go. Grant's done a good job. He's in the green room looking exhausted, I've got to say.
Yes.
Your other half. Well, look, I mean, it's really the big headline of the day, isn't it? In tomorrow's papers, Jasmine Birtles. Prime Minister, I will bring back national service. That's in the Telegraph. I think he actually gave the story. It's a Sunday, Mail on Sunday exclusive. Rishi, I will bring back national service. Is this going to move the dial politically?
Well, you never know. It might. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've grown up hearing people constantly, but, you know, older men usually go, bring back national service, that'll sort them out. And
are they all from Jamaica?
Well...
very harsh. Very harsh.
And now I'm going, bring back national service. There's something wrong. But no, I think it's a great idea. I do think it's a good idea. And of course, you know, I'm looking at that, and there's Starmer talking about helping parents get childcare. So it sort of shows which area they're aiming at. So Sunak, I assume, is aiming at the older voter who's going, bring back national service, sorry.
Yeah.
Whereas Starmer is going for the 16-year-olds, as we've said, and the young parents, I think.
Well, it's funny because the stories dovetail this idea of the 16 and 17-year-olds getting the vote because they can sign up to the army. They won't fight for their country, but they can participate and do training and things like that. And then this issue about national service. What would the advantage be of national service? What good would that do our youngsters?
Well, I think it's quite a few. There are quite a few things. It teaches discipline, and we're not just talking about joining the army, you know, that sort of thing. There's also civic duties, and I think, you know, a lot of them would be interested in doing either. So you get to learn discipline, learn how to keep yourself going, and also you get to do things for others, certainly if you do the civic duty, and that's good for anybody, frankly.
Most definitely. Have you participated in any sort of military-type activity?
I would hate it. I think it's a wonderful idea.
I think you'd look great in uniform.
No, I think I'd have to be the entertainment side of it, you know. I think I would love. But no, I would hate it, but I think it's a wonderful idea because I think it gets children off the streets where they are, and they are not enjoying it, and they are finding other things interesting, like knives and like guns and all sorts of terrible drugs. You know, and I think that would give them a look that they could actually see something to the future.
Most definitely. And the other thing is fitness, because actually youngsters, surprisingly, are quite out of shape these days. So a bit of fitness, bit of... do you not feel that standards have declined? I mean, you know, there are plenty of youngsters that I find very impressive, but I look at kids going off to school. I saw a youngster the other day going to school in sliders. Now, do you know what sliders are?
Yeah.
They're effectively flip-flops. They're the kind of thing you would wear at a swimming pool. Kids gone off to school like that. Do you feel that standards have dropped?
I think without doubt. I mean, funny enough, I was on a tube the other day. I never go on the tube, but I went on the tube because it was easier. And I sat there and looking at people's shoes.
Yeah.
And there was not one proper pair of shoes.
No.
No, everybody wears trainers.
Yes, only trainers or Skechers like I'm wearing. Nowhere was there a black shoe that you needed to polish.
Oh.
And, you know, I think that's rather sad in a way.
My dad did a period of military service, and therefore, for the rest of his life, his shoes, you could shave in front of them. They were they're shiny.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that it would give them a feeling of self-respect because they'd be given tasks to do. It would get them out of bed in the morning, and then it would give them a task to do. And when they'd completed it, they would get some satisfaction and a sense of achievement. And I think the one thing I do not want for this campaign to do is to kind of go down the boogeyman route in that terms of, are we preparing for war? Because Rishi Sunak has been making these, I think, rather alarming statements about, we're heading towards this, and Labour can't keep you safe. We're the ones who can keep you safe. Look, we're going to get an army of people together. And that's what I don't want. I'm thinking about this purely from the stance of young people. Having said that, anybody I'd ever met who said, had done their national service, said they hated it, but then actually that it was the making of them.
Yeah. Crazy, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, look at this from Carol on the message board, who says Sunak's going to make conscription compulsory for 18-year-olds for a year. Why would you sign up? It wouldn't end there, but why fight for a country that puts its citizens second to everyone else? What about universities, says Shirley. She's not happy about this idea.
Different gap year, surely.
I mean, well, what about the politics of this? I mean, do you think it will be attractive to voters, this policy begins? I mean, is it enough from Rishi Sunak, or are the deck chairs being rearranged on the Titanic?
Listen, I think you're absolutely right. The deck chairs are being rearranged. Every party is grasping at things that think that might appeal to us. Personally, I'd get rid of all of them. I really would. I mean, I don't know why we bother to vote for this the next election, because it's going to be a nightmare, whatever happens.
Do you feel politically homeless?
I do, completely.
I think most people feel politically homeless. I do.
I mean, I know you're dressed as a Reform candidate today. Reading between the lines. I mean, what about the smaller parties? I mean, will they clean up a little bit? The Lib Dems, Reform, the Greens.
I don't think so.
The Lib Dems will take Tory seats. They really will. I'm quite convinced of that.
Not many, though. I don't think they'll take many.
I don't know. I think more than last time. And the trouble is, we don't have proportional representation. And the size of the Lib Dem vote at the last election just did not relate to the number of MPs that they got.
But, Jasmine, you're not having the smaller parties being influential?
I don't think so. I mean, I would like it. And I've been saying to people, do vote. I'm a voter. I vote every single time because women have died so that I can have the vote. So I'm absolutely into voting, and I do say that everybody should vote. But I've said, look, if you feel politically homeless, and most do, have a look at the smaller parties. I don't think that there's going to be enough to get more than 3 or 4 seats, to be honest, across them, largely because the rug's been pulled from under them, having this very early election, or relatively early election. They all expected to be sort of October, November. So I don't think they've got themselves together for this. So I don't think in this election they'll do well. Next election, they might. Who knows?
What was your first reaction when you heard that Nigel Farage was not going to participate in the election actively as a prospective parliamentary candidate, that he wasn't going to take over the leadership of Reform UK? Was that a significant moment?
Yes, I think so. I mean, Nigel he's strategically very, very, very astute. So there's something else going on, I would think, in his thinking, in his life. But I think that for Reform, that means that they probably won't get a seat. They might get one, maybe. But if he'd taken the leadership and if he'd stood, I think they could have got 2 or 3 seats. But I think they'd barely get one now.
Do you think Richie actually made this early? election purely because he wanted to get out of it?
Well, I think he's.
Some are speculating about that.
I think it could be.
It could be, yes. I don't think he wants to be. Well, he's saying, apparently, and I've heard this, from people in Parliament, that he's saying that we're going to have a war and he doesn't want to be a war Prime Minister. I hope he's very wrong. Like you, Nina, I hope he's wrong. But I think what they did is they saw a sweet spot. We've got inflation down, growth isn't as anemic as we thought, we've got sunshine-ish, and I think they just thought, right, get in now while we can. It's not going to get better than this. That's my view.
I think there are a couple of things. One is that he went early, so he doesn't have to be proved wrong about the Rwanda scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I read a Robert Peston tweet that said that he'd heard.
That's where you went wrong. That was your first mistake. Was it a long tweet that went
No, it wasn't. It was the fact that they'd realised that they didn't have the money for any kind of budget announcement in the autumn. So go now before they caught out with not having to say no money.
Yeah.
And also there are almost no Tory MPs left.
No.
It's over 100. Michael Gove.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about the rats leaving the sinking ship. Well, he's the snake leaving the ship. It's become like Noah's Ark. You've got the rat and a snake. All these rats and a snake.
Let's face it, who would want to be Prime Minister of this country?
Yes.
Poison chalice.
Mad. Yeah.
Absolutely a poison chalice.
And to be fair, I wouldn't want to be an MP. I mean, partly because I'm a female, and it's really tough, I think, for the women. But you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Yeah. You're paid peanuts. I mean, really, it's pathetic, considering the importance of your role.
Yeah.
You're paid about the same as some sort of, middle marketing manager somewhere. It's a terrible job, I think.
No wonder they do other jobs.
Yeah.
But people go into it, actually. There are still people who go into it wanting to make the country better. But there are fewer and fewer of that calibre, and that's the trouble.
OK, well, listen, let me tell you that things are hotting up on the campaign trail. Why Sir Keir Starmer is trying to win over readers of the Daily Mail, and Rishi Sunak hits back at a slur from Labour. We'll bring you all the latest with our top Westminster insider. That's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
So the UK's most popular baby names have been revealed, with Noah and Olivia again topping the annual list. In at number 2 is Mohammed for boys. List is on the screen here. Number 3 for boys is George. Then it goes Olivia. Then it's Leo, Arthur, and so on. And for girls, so Olivia is number 1. Then Amelia, Isla, Ava, Lily, Ivy, Freya. There we go. Any of those names take your pick? Where's Dawn, by the way?
Well, yeah, there's on the Telegraph website, right, there's a really good way linked into this where you can actually put your name into the search engine, and these are names from 2022, by the way, and it tells you how common your name was. And I did put Dawn in. It's never been that popular. Can't think why. And there were only 5 babies named Dawn in 2022.
Really? That's surprising.
It's not a full confession here, right? My middle name, Mum, I hate you, is Maureen. Why is everyone laughing? My middle name is Maureen, which is a good old-fashioned East End name, and that has completely died out. There were no babies named Maureen.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Names like Keith, for example, Peter. Would you call a baby these days Keith or Ian? Baby Ian?
Without a doubt. I feel like I'm in a persecuted minority, you see, because later on, when I'm watching the boxing with Terry, Steve, Mick, Phil and Kev, right, and Peter, there are no such names featuring in this list. We are dying out. Our names will soon be gone forever, and I feel victimised by it.
Likewise, I should think we should start a campaign group and go on a protest march through London.
Cans, what do you make about Mohammed being number 2 for boys' names?
I'm not going to comment on people. They're going to call what they want to call. What I find interesting is people that do double barrel because they can't decide, and a lot of people do that, and that's a bit difficult because I think you should just pick a name.
I tell you names that are falling down the list though: Harry and Meghan.
Join me, Camila Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camila Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Well, one of my viewers doesn't agree with Jasmine Birtles, our top pundit tonight. Mary says MPs earn a good wage, but they also have very generous expense accounts. A lot of things the rest of us pay for, they can claim back in expenses. OK, MPs are paid very well, and most end up millionaires, says Shirley. OK, well, there you go. Well, look, let's get to more of your thoughts in a moment, but it's time now for the last word. After 3 days of the election campaigning, there's plenty of fallout. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves says Britain can trust Labour and vows to never play fast and loose with your money in an impassioned plea to Daily Mail readers. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak campaigned in Yorkshire today in response to Labour accusing Sunak of hiding away in his mansion, as it was speculated he was going to take the day off. Well, tonight, Rachel Reeves has criticised Rishi Sunak for reckless, unfunded £64 billion tax cuts. So the gloves are clearly off. Let's get reaction from TV legend Michael Crick. Michael, great to see you. You've spent many years on the campaign trail following prime ministers, leaders of the opposition. Do you want to take the political temperature at the moment? Where are we so far?
Well, I think it's pretty low at the moment compared with how it would get. I mean, we got a taster last summer when both Labour and the Conservatives put out a series of pretty dishonest ads. I forget the details now, but they were both essentially lying. They were both reducing their campaigns to the gutter in a way that I don't think I'd really seen at that level before, and I suspect the same will happen again when, particularly from the Conservatives, because the air of desperation is about them. Labour are being more careful, not to speak wrong, and not to, holding the Ming vase is good. And they're ahead. They don't need to. They need to just play the ball about at the back. They don't need to take risks. And it's the Conservatives and Rishi Sunak that does need to take risks because he's more than 20% behind.
You are one of the great disruptors of television news. Do you think that it's been a disruptive moment for Rishi Sunak to call the election unexpectedly in July? Could it be a masterstroke, or is it already dead on arrival, the whole thing?
It could. Well, let's be honest. The Conservative campaign is a damage limitation exercise. The chances of the Conservatives winning the election and staying in power, I think, are very small indeed. I think that, Keir Starmer will be Prime Minister come July the 5th or 6th of one kind or another, either with a majority government, that's the likely outcome, or perhaps a minority government where he doesn't have a majority in the House of Commons. He'll depend on some of the other parties, notably the Liberal Democrats, to govern, as David Cameron did, of course, way back in 2010. Now, in those circumstances, Sunak's going to think, if I hang on, is that just going to mean we lose even more seats? Or if we have a campaign now when certain indicators are going reasonably well, is it possible to maybe hold on to 250 seats or even more? That's the kind of calculation he'll be making. Bit of a personal sacrifice, because it means that he won't have been Prime Minister for so long. He'll be the third shortest Prime Minister in length of time, I should stress, rather than height, since the war, after Liz Truss and Alec Douglas-Home. But all Prime Ministers take gambles when it comes to the date of an election. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. My own suspicion probably won't make a huge amount of difference whether the election's on July the 4th or October the 4th or December the 4th or even January the 4th. The Conservatives...
Michael, sorry to interrupt you briefly, if you can. Do you think this will be the election in which the Lib Dems bounce back?
To a degree, yes. And I think you'll see the Lib Dems probably going up to maybe 30 or 40 seats. It's interesting that Michael Gove stood down in Surrey Heath. They're on his tails. The polls there suggest the Lib Dems could easily win that. And if he's no longer the candidate for the Conservatives, that improves Lib Dem chances. All of those seats, sort of southwest London, Surrey, sort of a very Remainerish area, those are within the Lib Dem targets and other places. They're being reasonably modest in how many targets they've got. They've only got about 20 or 30. I suspect, as well as those, they may win some they don't expect to win. But yeah, I mean, the Liberal Democrats only got 9 seats in 2019. They built that up to 15 seats through winning by-elections. I think they will come out of this election with 30 or 40, and that may hold the balance of power. Probably not, but it could do.
Michael, I'm going to bring my pundits in 1 second. One final question for you. It's a very tough question, OK? You're going to really need to take a deep breath and have a think about it. Manchester United have won the FA Cup today. Your reaction?
Well, I was there. I mean, it's been... You probably hear my
you're a massive Red, aren't you?
I am. I go to most of the games, and I was shouting and singing, and that's why I feel a bit rough. And I feel exhausted, frankly, from the 2 hour the nervousness of it all as well. It was an extraordinary victory. And if the question you're going to ask me is whether United should now sack Erik ten Hag, if you'd asked me that yesterday, I would have said yes. But I don't think you can after what he's done today. He's won a second trophy in 2 years. Most of the season, United have been dreadful, rubbish, boring. But he's pulled it off against our big city rivals. Against all the odds. We're now playing again in Europe next season, which we didn't expect. If I were the owners, if I was Jim Ratcliffe, I'd give him another 6 months, see how it's going at Christmas. Maybe this can act as the springboard. He's going to have to get rid of quite a lot of players this summer and bring in quite a lot of players.
Okay.
And I think probably most fans would agree with me on that.
OK, well, congratulations to United. Commiserations to City. Let's bring my pundits in. Nina Mishkov, Christopher Biggins and the lovely Jasmine Birtles. Biggins, who's winning the election race at the moment? We know Labour are ahead in the leads, but who's had the best 3 days?
Well, what I'm going to say now, I'm a Conservative, but I like Rachel Stevens.
Do you mean Rachel Reeves?
Reeves, sorry.
Rachel
Reeves.
Stevens is from S Club 7.
No, sorry, no, well, I like her too.
And I think she'd be a rubbish chancellor.
But Rachel Reeves, I think, is a force.
She is. She's an impressive politician.
She is an impressive politician, and I think at the moment Labour are ahead.
OK, it's 3 days. Who's winning so far? Nina, briefly, a couple of seconds.
Labour and Rishi Sunak, that drenching...
it's washed out, drowned rat. And briefly, Jasmine, who's winning so far?
Yes, I think Labour and Lib Dems, I think they are definitely. But, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of people are concerned. Labour, Conservative, they're 2 cheeks behind.
Two cheeks. We ended on a...
very different.
We ended on a bum. Listen, Michael, come and see us again soon. Thanks for my pundits and the team. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Headliners is...
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Over the next 24 hours, it turns increasingly unsettled. We'll see cloud and outbreaks of rain across the country, and that's all thanks to low pressure, which is going to dominate the rest of the bank holiday weekend, bringing areas of rain and heavy and thundery showers as well. We've already got rain this evening pushing in from the southwest. This will continue to drift northwards as we head into the early hours. Rain across eastern areas also continuing to push northwards into parts of Scotland. Some of this will be heavy at times, but with a lot more cloud around, it will be generally quite mild overnight, temperatures remaining in double figures. But it does mean generally a grey, damp start across the UK Sunday morning with outbreaks of rain. However, northern Scotland, there will be some sunny spells first thing in the morning before cloud and rain pushes northwards from the south. As you can see, across southern Scotland into Northern Ireland, a cloudy start, outbreaks of rain, but temperatures in double figures. Cloudy across the central swathe of England and Wales, but some brighter skies already pushing into southern parts of England and Wales there. And they will continue to push northwards as we move through the morning. However, as the temperatures start to rise, we'll see the clouds bubble up and we'll see heavy showers across much of England and Wales and southern parts of Scotland as we move through into the afternoon. Some rumbles of thunder possible, local disruption, generally staying cloudier for parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland here with outbreaks of rain. A little cooler for most, temperatures generally 17 to 20 Celsius, feeling a little warmer in the southeast compared to Saturday. On Monday, another day of sunny spells and showers for many. Some of these will be heavy at times, some longer spells of rain possible as well for parts of Scotland, and it stays unsettled Tuesday into Wednesday with further spells of rain in places. Temperatures near average.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The next Great British Giveaway winner could be you, with a massive £20,000 in tax-free cash to be won. Imagine how you'd react getting that winning call from us.
Oh my God, are you joking? Not a line, what is it? I never won a penny in my life. I don't know what to say. Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life. Oh my God. Oh God. Oh, it shocks me. This is amazing.
For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
He's meeting his father, the King, for just the second time since his father's cancer diagnosis. Harry's going to an Invictus Games gig at St Paul's on Wednesday, and his father is hosting a garden party at Buckingham Palace. Once they're all said and done, about 7 p.m, they are going to meet, apparently.
Yeah,
but crucially not the Princess of Wales.
Well, I think it's a wonderful story, and obviously you would. If you're visiting the country, you haven't seen your dad and he's ill with cancer, of course you'd go grab a Costa. I can't wait to see the pictures of them in Costa together, just having a little catch-up.
Do you know, they might embrace?
I would hope so, but...
Do you know, I think it's really important that life's too short not to have a relationship with your family. I know too many people that aren't speaking, or they've fallen out because of money or whatever, and we're only on this earth for a very short time, and what a shame not to have a relationship with your own
haven't they?
son.
I mean, it's the trust issue that is really the problem here, and straight after this they're going to be heading off to Nigeria, and they're still involved in all of these